Hey guys,
G'day.
welcome to Aussie Craft
Bloody hell.
Distillers Shit, broadcasting live from the back of the Craftworks Ute. I kid you not. This is the only place I could get reception, so I seriously need to drink. So I'm going to have one very shortly, a really good one. But anyway, let's rip into it. So for those who don't know, my name's Craig or Crafty from Craftworks Distillery, and tonight tonight's quite a special night actually, because we have our first ever guest presenter, or shoot the shitter as we like to refer to them, and we have a very important person, a distiller, and he's got a great story, and we're gonna rip into that in a sec. But first things first, John, fellow shoot the shitter, how are you, my friend?
Good, mate. How are you going?
Oh, I'm in the back of my ute.
Yeah, I know. It was a rhetorical question. I know you're having a shit day. That's all right, though. Thanks for having me on. I mean, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing here, but that's all right, right?
Well, join the club. There's three of us that don't know what we're doing here, so.
Yeah, we don't have Luke, resident Luke, the other shoot the shitter, who is the guy that is the glue that holds this whole thing together, and so Todd has stepped into the driving seat on the
just an inside secret. He's still sitting offline, just checking us out. With an absolute...
He still wants the glue. He just is now.
You should see the grin on his face as he's just cringing.
So we have a segment.
Enjoy your evening, Lukey.
We have a segment called "Throw Todd Under the Bus," and apparently this whole thing tonight is going to be "Throw Todd Under the Bus." So,
I should have just run with my "Throw Todd Under the Bus" instead of the starting sequence.
All right. So let's move on. So our guest tonight is Lyntton from Windmill Farm Brewery and Distillery. Is that right, Lyntton?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Windmill Farm Distilling and Brewing. Yep.
Awesome, mate. It's great you're here, and really looking forward to having a chat with you, because you're right at the start of your journey. So it's going to be very interesting. You're going to give us some good insight on to what the fuck it's like to put a distillery together nowadays, right? And ones that have been around for a bit, like John and myself, are going to go, oh Jesus, it's got a lot harder now, hasn't it? I think that's what's going to.
Yeah, we did it easy.
So first things first, guys. What's everyone drinking tonight? So I'm going to start. Right, I'm in the back of the ute. I've got a wine glass, because that's all I've got is a wine glass, right? And I've only got one bottle of whiskey, and it's the Todd. This is the one that we've gone halvesies in, and I'm drinking it now.
Okay.
It's the Starwood latest ginger beer.
We go for some whiskies after he's bought them, by the way. It's just how it goes.
Nothing like a plastic wine glass in the back of the ute, mate.
Oh, mate. Living the dream here, I tell you. And you know what? I'm twisted on an angle, so tomorrow I'm going to have a fuck back, a fuck neck. So, anyway.
Stop coming up with excuses.
I mean, it could have been worse.
Could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Every time you stop talking, I think you're frozen again. So you're going to have to just talk the whole time. If people walking past your ute, is that normal? Where are you?
Yeah, out in the car park.
Yeah, he's in the cold car park.
Right. So, Lyntton, what's in your glass, mate?
At the moment, I actually started on it. It was only because I went and bought a bottle of gin for a person who did us a favour with a bushfire report, and I come across this, and I hadn't actually seen it before. And Green Ant gin.
Green Ants, yeah, that's cool. That's cool stuff. There.
Yeah, they've got the little. I don't know if you can pick that up, but there's little green ants in there, and it's actually really, really nice. So I'm looking forward to actually
inside secret. It's very hard to get one of those ants.
Yeah, well, they seem to stick right in the bottom. So
they always they swim away from the glass.
But the whiskey I've moved on to is actually a Lower Marsh single malt whiskey. Yeah, I don't know if you can. A mate brought it around, and Sorry, I'm not. Yeah, there we go.
Maple release. Yeah. Oh Jesus.
It's a. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. Is that picking that up or not really?
No, not really. But
it's
looks
right.
like a label.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah. Tastes good.
I'm just seeing next to you, next to me. Anyway, John, what are you on, mate? What are you drinking?
I started with a Hobart. I've got a few drams here for tonight. It's our last release. Nothing overly exciting. I also have this mystery sample that I found on my desk. It's got no label on it, so I'm not sure what it is. But
mystery samples, we're good at that.
Yeah.
What's this glass for?
It's part of the challenge of writing tasting notes is to try and determine what cask it is in the Bond store. So,
Nice.
I'm sure Ben will know what's going on.
Hey mate, we had a bit of a scare in the distillery last week. So I had two whiskey casks, two barrels ready for filling outside. I left them outside over the holiday period. And my wife was Mrs. Crafty was giving me a real hard time going, oh, why did you leave them out? They're really good barrels. I went, yeah, they'll be all right. Don't worry, bah. And then she found borer beetles. So these casks are outsized. They've got holes in them. And I kid you not, they're twice the size of a pinhead. And she's seen the beetles, and so I was freaking out, going, Jesus, if they're in the shed, we got big problems. I talked to Youngie about it from YN Cooperage, and he said, mate, that happens in the wineries. So what you do is if you have barrels like that, you leave them outside as a sacrificial barrel to the borer, and they're happy to munch away on those barrels, but hopefully stay away from your good stuff. That was a learning. I wouldn't expect that.
I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a trap, though, because if they learn that you're going to keep feeding them, they'll just get more and more, and you'll have to do more sacrificial casks. I don't know.
Exactly. They'll ring around their family and go, "We're onto a good thing here, guys." This guy just
right. Yeah.
I suppose it can work both ways. It's like when you have gardens and you put things like comfrey or other plants at the front, which are sacrificial plants that they like to go, or bugs or insects or whatever vermin you're trying to get rid of like to go towards. But yeah, same elk. You're either breeding them and building the population, or you're hoping that they're just going to focus their energy on that.
Yeah, or they're having a party. Yeah, exactly, mate. So let's rip into it, Lyntton.
Hang on.
What
Just
happened?
let me, because you haven't asked me what I'm drinking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, maybe I feel left out.
Sorry. I thought you were
it's
so
actually water,
you
but
drinking.
I am. No, I'm drinking. So it's Manly Spirits, Coastal Stone. It's their second release, but their first release, if that makes sense. So it's the bourbon cask.
Just released the bourbon cask. Yeah.
So,
I was at Manly Monday actually, and I got to taste some of that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, Lyntton. So give us, for those that don't know, tell us your story, because it's, from what I understand, it's a really interesting story, and you're coming at it from quite a different perspective. So give us a rundown of your story, and also how you've approached building your own distillery and brewery, mate. Let us know.
Yeah, it's definitely a big, broad question, which has evolved too. That's probably one thing. It's definitely evolved over a lot of years, but it probably started with when I actually got introduced to whiskey. So probably the same sort of thing. When you're 18, you like beer. You try, and people say try whiskey, and usually you probably try a bourbon whiskey because it's a mixer. And I was like, it's not really for me, sort of thing. And it wasn't until I was down in Melbourne and a mate handed me a bottle of Lafroig, actually, just 10-year-old. And he said, try this. And I tried. I'm like, that's exactly, I love that. That is awesome. It's like an old leather boot. And it was from there, that's where my infatuation, I suppose, took over. And that was probably about 10 years ago. So from there, really just a common interest in whiskey. And then it definitely grew probably around 2014, 2015. At the time, I was a pilot flying up in Sydney for one of the airlines, and just got really interested into whiskey, and was able to fly to different places and try and go to different distilleries and whatnot. And then we live in Jamboree, and it's where our current distillery is going to be as well. And at the time, he's now one of my best mates, and he's the one that's going to the distillery with us. He lived across the road and heard that he did home brewing. So that's how we first met. And then from there, our love with beer, and then he's like, oh, I love whiskey too. And I suppose that's where the love with whiskey sort of came about. And then it got a lot more than a love of whiskey. We were starting to get a lot bigger with our homebrew system into stainless kegs and whatnot, and messing around with all grain. And then we're like, and then long story short, I had a problem with my eye and couldn't fly anymore. And then we decided that, it was something that we were really interested in doing on a bit more serious level. So we went to, I think our first proper step that we decided to take was to go down, and we went on the Tasmanian Whiskey Academy down with Anne Gigney in 2016, I think it was. We went on a 2016 course.
2016, so that was sort of like, trying to think now, that would have been probably the second or third course that they did. I think it was 20, wasn't it?
It would have been. It was winter, dead winter, so it would have been around May, it was June, around June. But 2016, and then from pretty much when we went down there, ate a ton of curried scallop pies. By the way, John, I reckon I put on about 4 kilos in curried scallop pies. That was so bloody good. But even we went to we did the rounds of Moo Brew. We went to Sullivan's Cove. And it really just instilled. And down to Chris and Rex down at Nonsuch, it really, I suppose, instilled that this is what we really want to do. So at the airport, we're there designing stills, knowing nothing about still design or anything at the time, and but we're like, this would work. Because David Comby is top bloke, really practical with everything that he does. He's a really experienced Sparky, but he's the not the gadget man, but he's the fix-it man. So if you can fix it with bugles, zip ties, and electrical tape, he's sorted. But everything, he's always singing outside the square. So we're there and we're drawing. I reckon this is how it could work and whatnot. Get back home, and then sort of like you go back into the usual reality of life. And we were like, no, we want to actually try and get somewhat of an education. So I looked at IBD, like knowing, I had a look through Australia, trying to see if there was TAFE courses or anything. Nothing in Australia. And then found the IBD, and I thought, well, you know what? I'd already knew about them before I went down to Anne Gigney's thing, but I thought I'll definitely probably do a proper course. I did the general to start with, and found that it was a plethora of information. I found it's obviously, and they structure it for that reason. It was great as an overall rounded knowledge. It just gave you an insight into the general industry, and mainly probably on a commercial scale, and also for entire spirits industry. So that's probably one thing that I didn't really think when I went into, because I just went into going, whiskey. They focused on everything: tequila, vodka, brandy, cognac, and variants of thereof. And then from that, I was like, when we decided to get a little bit more serious, we decided that I would apply for a alcohol manufacturer's license, excise license, and we can set it up in his back shed. This will be fine. What could go wrong? We'll build a small still, and we'll grow big from there. We'll be able to grow on scale. And very soon we realised that it didn't really matter how much we would grow. That shed would be way too small for what we want to do, and also council wouldn't allow it. But we'd already what that excise manufacturer's license did was it allowed us to start building stills, because that was one thing that we were really we didn't want to go on the wrong side, because there had been a case of a bloke down just south of us that had got on the wrong side of the ATO operating outside his license, and they came down pretty hard, and we didn't want to be on the wrong side of them, so we were like, no, we'll do it properly. So we did the whole thing with the excise license, did the that was out of his shed, and that gave us the capacity to start designing buildings. So what I did then was I signed up to the IBD diploma for modules 1, 2, and 3, all in 1 year.
Wow.
Which I thought, no, I can do this. Yeah, it was. It's a workload, and when they say 120 hours, that's probably 120 hours of reading the content, actually it sinking in, and and learning things that you have no idea about, because when they go into the actual diploma thing, that there were, I suppose it's edged towards senior supervisors and big where you can save money in a distillery, really. You're going through I've got thermodynamics books and everything just to try and go through their equations, and I was like, oh, really? It's what have I done? But in saying that, it's been fantastic. Like, if that's one little bit of advice that I would probably give, is that if you are dead serious about investing your life and your time, because that's what you're doing if you're starting, as you guys well and truly know, you've got to love it. You really do. And any passion that you have for whatever work you do, you've either got to love it, otherwise you're going to resent it. So, I really, really think if you can educate yourself and spend the time, it gave what I found it did, and the difference between the general and the diploma is that it gave good bits of information that you could have trolled through the internet and gone on the ADI and everything, and you could have got 1,000 different answers. But you knew this was I suppose, a baseline, a textbook answer that gave you something to hang your hat on, and that you could work from there. Obviously, they're working, and it's all European, and they do talk about other countries and whatnot, but it's a baseline to work off. They talk about differences in like even different oaks, and they talk about the different structures in lignin and what flavors you get from that. So as opposed to guessing, I suppose and obviously there's variations, and it'll never replace experience, but it's something that allows you to, I suppose, understand the language and the lexicon of when people do talk about it, and also understand in your own mind when you do go, I'm going to buy that. Oh, that's why that did that, or
It's a big part of it. The big why. So you learn something and you go, okay, but why? And you go, well, that's what we're told. Yeah, but why? And it's the whys that keep you going and drilling down and trying to understand what it's all about. And as you know, mate, the more people you talk to, the more different answers you get, don't you? It's there's some fundamental things, but a lot of things are just people's experiences, and everyone's different. So sorry, mate, carry on. I just sort of
no, that's all right. Sorry, John.
I think it's determining what you want to do. Like, it's going to take a bit of time for you to understand what you want to do, and you can have the fundamentals there.
100%.
Yeah. I've got so many questions that you sort of went along there so quickly that I'm trying to make a mental note of things.
No, that's all right. No, I was going to say, actually, my wife says to me, I should ask people when they ask me a question, do you want the long story or the short story? Because I trail off. Yeah.
I reckon it'd probably be safe if you just took a breath and let somebody else get something else in. Then we might have a chance to ask.
No worries.
I have to get out of the ute. I'm losing signal. Hold on.
What? Don't you go missing me out, man?
Like, no. It's like last week, right? So we had Ben Osborne on from Local Spirits, right? And we said, okay, Ben, I'm going to ask you some questions. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us your story. At the hour and a half mark, we were still on Ben's story, right? It was like, fuck. We had all these other questions, but we couldn't ask because Ben's story was so complicated and in depth, and it was really, really cool. So your story is, I must say, I'm quite surprised. You've really, really gone deep at a very, very early stage to get those fundamentals right. So that's really cool, mate. That's really cool.
Yeah, I suppose I inherently like to know why things happen. So from an aviation background, ex-army, and then rotary wing and fixed wing, I like to know why things happen. And I find that I'm a pretty simple person, but if I know why it's happening, it makes more sense to me. So, yeah, I suppose when it went to this is going to be my livelihood, I don't know if I've told everyone. I spoke to the guys before. I've got four children, and when I had a problem with my eye from flying, it stopped me flying completely. And I suppose it really, really hit home that they're completely dependent on me. So that's when I was like, you know what, if we are going to do this seriously, I want to throw myself in full-heartedly and learn as much as I can. And that's not even just IBD, but like doing I got some books here, like the Craft Malters Guild. I'll branch out that maybe a bit later, but just with the farm and craft malting. And these, I don't know if you guys have had anything to do with the brewing.
Yeah.
So the malt, the yeast, the water, and the hops. The water one is fantastic for brewing and whatnot. They've been fantastic books. And obviously, I'm not doing it on a commercial scale at the moment. And where I suppose I see a lot of difference is with the brewing and the distilling. It actually blew my mind. The more I got into it, the more I realized how different they actually really are from the start. Yeah, they use a similar ingredient at the start, but how different even the processes and whatnot. Yeah.
Mate, you've absolutely nailed a topic there, right? Because we often hear, whiskey is just made from beer.
Yeah.
It's not. The ingredients are the same, but it's not. The process is different. The finesse of making a wash and the finesse of making a beer, two totally different animals.
100%. And how you let that interaction work with whether you want yeast or you want bacterial or whatever, however you want to let that go.
Yeah.
Beer needs a shelf life. Distilling, we can let it get as funky as you need to get the esters or congeners, whatever you want to pull off it. That's up to you. So yeah, I suppose, and then you don't have to drink that. It then goes through still. So we're probably lucky in that regard. You've got a lot more flexibility to try and get a broader range, albeit yes, it's got to go through the same process. But I think there's some pretty cool things that can happen, and then the interaction again with the wood at the end. I really, really think there's a lot that can be done. Well, and you guys all understand that anyway. But there's so much that can happen with your base spirit that comes off the still, and then how the interaction that you have with the wood. You can have exactly the same spirit exactly the same barrels and 3 different spirit runs, and that time, that temperature just completely changes it. And the ABV strength just blew my mind that the guys, for example, in the US putting their spirit in higher because it then decreases, or sorry, the other way around, putting it lower and then increasing because of the humidity and the temp. and then drawing off different flavors. Anyway, I'll stop talking.
It's a deep dive, and I'm going to pull us out of this deep dive because there's some people that you're watching and going, "Oh fuck, they're off." Right? This is a deep dive technical. So let's change direction. John, what's your comment on brewing as a Tasmanian? What's your concept of brewing and impact of flavour, and where are you going with your distillery nowadays in that regard?
Fuck no, it's not about me though, right? Like we're
it is now because I just made it.
Right.
It's called throw John under the bus.
Let's throw John under the bus.
I'm not ready for these sort of questions. I'm here to ask a question to prime myself. That's right. So, what's the question? So, look, what was the question? Fuck, I've forgotten the question. What's the question?
The question is, so there's different schools of thought, right? And one of the schools of thought is it's all about the barrels. Another school of thought is it's all about the spirit. Another school of thought is brewing is so fundamental, and if you're not doing the brewing and you're not controlling those flavor levers, you're restricting yourself. Yeah. And I'm not having. Hang on. Let me just add another comment. I am just commenting that these are different ways of making whiskey, and everyone's got a different take on the whole thing. Yeah. But the brewing is
obviously down here. We started buying in wash from Moobra at the time. Very quickly, we wanted to do our own brewing in-house because we think that is such an important step of the flavour that's coming off your still. You know, like we are still experimenting with different yeast. We're experimenting with different grains just to try and work out the perfect new make spirit. That's what we want off the still. We're 6-7 years old, and we still haven't worked it out, but we're still doing a lot of that experimentation, and we know the flavor profile we want at the end, and it can make all the difference with the ferment, especially the ferment. Like with the mash, yes, to a certain extent, that will do so much. The yeast you use on the ferment, how you treat the ferment into the low wines makes a lot of difference in the final spirit. For us, it's more just about wanting to do as much of it as we can. It's about the story and the origin of the whiskey and what we're doing. And Lyntton, I think I read on your website you're planning on doing paddock to bottle, which I think is such a unique thing to do. And we want to do the same thing here. No, obviously we're not going to put a fucking crop down here, but you know, the owners of a farm out in Coal River Valley, and we're planning on doing paddock to bottle to some extent, because for us it's not about pushing volume out the door. It's just about making a wash that we love, a spirit that we love, into wood that we like, into a final product that we really, really like, and selling it to people that might enjoy it. To be able to say that's from our barley, then, you know, that's just another layer. It's about the story and just being able to put as much as we can into this product.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Actually, John, you touched on it. So, Lyntton, you may want to comment on this paddock to bottle. So straight out of the starting blocks, you're talking about paddock to bottle. That's something which takes. You really got to understand what you're doing. You really got to have an agricultural background or work with people who understand the land. That's a ballsy move, mate. Why'd you start going that way straight off the bat?
Yeah, look, I grew up on a cereal irrigation dairy farm out at Blighty, New South Wales. And so, everything from rice, wheat, barley. And best mate still lives out there now. They've got about 5,000-6,000 hectares of irrigated land. And for ages, I always wanted to go back to grassroots, going back to farming. And my wife's from this area, just south of Sydney. And we pretty much went back out there, and she was like, no way. So we had to compromise somewhere. And then when the idea with the brewery distillery came in, and that big important thing of having a point of difference, we're like, well, why don't I grow the barley? Why can't we tie this together? So we spent probably about 4 years looking for a piece of land. And pretty much the crux of it is we didn't want to lease the land. Because we knew how much infrastructure would be required to put into the actual piece of land and whatnot. And finally, we were lucky enough that we had a lovely a lovely husband and wife, they were able to offer an old dairy that they had. It ends up being about 16 acres
Nice.
that we were able to subdivide off. And I'll go into this a bit later, but that whole process with the subdivision and everything else that we wanted to do with it took a long time. But coming back to the actual paddock to bottle aspect, it was always an important part that being on a farm, it's a rural aspect, and that's our point of difference, that we can grow not just the barley, but we're doing gin, so we can grow a lot of the botanicals, and not just botanicals, but we're a subtropical, warm, temperate climate here, and we're a really different area where we actually are like a little bubble of a subtropical region. So we have the potential to grow a lot of different botanicals, and we have a lot of good native botanicals. Right. So we've had a few a consultant come in and catalog everything on the property. So we'll be growing native botanicals, hops that we can grow in this area, and barley. We can't grow rye, we can't grow wheat. It's too close to the coast, and we just won't get the drying from it. It wouldn't be useful for us to do. But in saying that, as I spoke about before, with my best mate still being out there, and he's only an hour and a half south of Stu at Voyager. So, and he has his own trucking company and that. So pretty much we can partner with them, or we've partnered with them, that they can put in whatever we want, be it rye, wheat, barley, and we can truck it up to Voyager and they can malt. So we can say whatever variety we'd like, and malt it to whatever we like. And then so whatever I can't supplement from here, being not a barley growing region, we'll still separate what we have here. So we'll probably put about a hectare under crop. And right. I have, which yields about, it's irrigated. So it's irrigated. We've got pretty good rainfall here, and I'm only looking after a hectare. So it should be quite high yielding, albeit if we don't have a year like this year where it's wet, because I'd still be waiting for it to dry off. But we should be expecting around 6 ton for that hectare, 6 to 8 ton, and then you've got malting losses and whatnot. So even if we came out with 4 ton of malted barley, which we're wanting to malt that on, that'll be malted on site. We've got an old, say, floor malting on site. Wow. At the end of the day, that barley there is a reflection of the provenance of that property. It might not be the best malting barley in the world. It may not be. It's a malting barley that is a reflection of that property, where we have full say with what other barley and other adjuncts that we use will come from our other sister company out there that can actually grow on a larger scale. But in saying that, though, we're not looking at making megatons worth of spirit. We're only at this stage. We have a 400 litre pot still, and then we have a pilot spirit still that we built as a 1/3 replica of our spirit still. So it's only 67 litres, but that's 1/3 of an 1800 litre spirit still. So that's 1/3 scale size, not volume size. And they're stills that we built we designed, and then did the work behind to water jet cut them, and then have them either pressed or rolled, and then copper welded.
Wow. So. I'd just like to say, John, I think it's fair to say, as a Tasmanian, you would acknowledge that New South Wales, we're kicking ass on the whiskey front. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, what fucking choice do I have? It's your stream. you really put me between a rock and a hard place. Look, I think Australian craft spirits, Australian whiskey as a whole, and spirits as a whole is kicking ass. Like, we're all in this together. We're all working together.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
And that's amazing. There's a lot of camaraderie which makes it a lot easier to do than any other industry I've worked in. So I actually had a question about your stills, because you said you were making them yourself. So I wondered if you were actually making them yourself from hand, but it sounds like you designed them, got them fabricated. Is that right? And so what's your plan for stills? You've got a 600 now, I think you said, and planning for an 1800 spirit still.
So we have a 400 litre which we designed a few years back, and it was welded from a mate who's a pressure pipe welder, and they have a fabrication shop just up the road. And pretty much it was, I suppose, being the first one, it was the trial still. Could we do this here? We wanted to try and keep as much as we could here in Australia, mainly because wherever you went, it was like, well, if it's under 3,000 litres, it's going offshore. We wouldn't even consider building it here. That was back then too, so a few years ago. So 400 litre, our then, I suppose, the design aspect of it was that 400 litre would actually be our gin still. We have a gin basket that we've made and designed, and that then our spirit still would be 1,800 litres, and our wash still would be 2,500 litres. Now, being we're not flush with cash, it's only two mates. We're pretty much starting skint. Now, a lot of the funds that we had has gone into the property, and also the infrastructure of property, and probably what I'll allude to later is the red tape and regulation of actually getting purchasing a piece of land, a piece of rural land to put a distillery on and a brewery on, because there's not many in New South Wales. And if there are, they were probably put there more than 5-6 years ago. So that's probably our design for pot still wise. Now the 400 litre is on a worm tub. And that was mainly, I suppose I was looking more for flavour with that. And
so you're after quite a very rich, earthy, heavy spirit. That's the type of spirit you're looking at producing.
Well, that was designed because that one was designed as our gin still. So I wanted the aspect of having that with. I didn't want to. I suppose I wanted the aspect with the oils effectively. Our spirit still is a shell and tube, and so is our wash still. When they come about, they don't exist at the moment. Those two, the 1,800 litre and the 2,500 litre, don't exist. They're designed, but they don't exist. And so, flavor wise, that's sort of what. We were looking for. I suppose we wanted a gin. We wanted flexibility with our first still, our 400 litre still, and the worm tub gave us that for cost wise, because I didn't have to braise 1,000 little divider plates or well. But it gave us a lot of flexibility, I suppose.
Sorry, I'm trying to work out my little thing.
No,
it's all terrible. There's no right answer for that. Anyway, so I just want to circle back to what you said.
That'll do. You go. Oh, that's clever.
I just want to circle back. Like, firstly, I do want to say it's I love the fact you're doing paddock to bottle. I think it's awesome. Yep. And don't let Crafty sort of put you off by him being fancy about it. So my other question was from the story you started earlier. So you've got your 400 litre still. Are you producing spirit now? Like, where are you at with all this? Where, you touched on red tape earlier, and we don't want to have a big discussion about red tape, but you can tell us about the troubles you've had. But are you producing? Have you made some spirit? Have you put it down? Where are you at with your story?
So the still itself, we were going to commission the still, and then when this piece of land came up, it got put on the back burner. And the main reason being that because with this new piece of land, we would have to change into an actual company, and then the ATO regulation then pretty much became the issue, I suppose, that if we were to produce spirit at that site, it would then have to be moved under bond, and we would have to actually commission it there, and it was going to create a bit of an issue of trying to create or run the still there. So no spirits run through the 400 litre at all. So this is bare bones from the start. Nothing's run through it at all.
So how long have you been on the property that you're planning on building a distillery on? Like, when did all this happen, the purchase?
Yeah. So we only got approval about a month and a half ago, and that was after 3 years or 2.5 years with council.
Wow.
So the first meeting I had with the current owner was over 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mate, you're showing tenacity, that's for sure.
So what have you been doing for the last 3 years?
So last 3 years, and that's why I used the opportunity to study, but project manage which it probably doesn't sound much, but the actual preparing the development, I would never have thought it would involve so much. There's jobs that I didn't even know existed. But I suppose like we've had probably 13 different consultants. The property itself doesn't help that out at all because it borders onto a what used to be the Minamara River or a river which goes out to the ocean. So there's Crown land involved. There's old Crown land titles. There's flood areas in the bottom. There, it's an old lot. So there's lots and lots of varied things, and also too, this is the first thing that they'd ever had. And in New South Wales itself, I know that you said don't allude to red tape, but that's really what has held this whole thing up. And our whole focus, even there was no one else going, oh yes, like there's no sewer on site, for example. So, but our whole premise of the farm is to be a sustainable innovation farm and to almost be a closed loop or an 80% closed loop system. So like a circular economy, whatever we can create, any nutrients or energy, we can try and keep on property, if that makes sense. So a lot of study into not just distilling, but waste systems and whatnot. So, and then over the past year, because there's been a company that's actually leased the land, we've made an agreement with them that we could use where the sheds are. So then we've been tidying up and whatnot at the sheds. But apart from design phase and actually cutting ground, we won't be able to cut ground until about April, May this year. We're still waiting for our CC for that aspect. But things like fire, like the BFSA so Tasmania, I'm sure, have a similar sort of thing in regards to bushfire regulation. So they've only just changed the bushfire regulation. So now farmland's included in that. So all your buildings have to be BEL 12.5. And there's just regulation. It blows my mind that there's any industry in Australia. But
but you're on the home stretch now, so
So now,
hang in there.
So now we're like, come on.
Like, Crafty is right. Like, tenacity is right. You've done all this hard work. You've jumped over the hurdles, and now you're on the home stretch. So April, May. Hopefully you can. Well, look, you say April, May. Well, let's be realistic. It'll be like September, October. You'll be able to turn that still on.
I say April, May for starting the build. So I'm actually thinking this time next year. So is when kick the start into gear, and that it's just because I would asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, 3 months. I would like our builder's like, 6 months, that won't be an issue because really it's just a big shed. Really, that's what a big shed that's prettied up, and that's off an existing old 1880 shed, old barn. Which will be our like whiskey cigar room sort of thing. But there's just so much bloody
you're showing this is really good, right? This is really good because you're coming at it from a perspective of you're right at the start of the journey, right? And a lot of people who are very interested in getting into this industry think, hey, I can come into this industry. I can make a shit ton of money. It's a pretty straightforward process. It's not. And it's getting harder and harder and harder, right? The one thing you've got to have, and it's just my own personal opinion, but the one thing you've got to have front and center above anything else is a passion for what you're doing. Because if you don't have that passion, you will fall at the first hurdle. You won't have the tenacity, the persistence, and you're showing it straight off the bat, mate. When you finally turn on your still, you're going to burst out into tears.
Oh, mate, there'll be. I don't know if anyone will make it to barrels. I think I'll just be putting my mouth under that celebration.
It'll be a still party.
Yeah, it'll be a still party. Yeah. But no, here's Crafty. Yeah.
Okay, you go. No, go, mate.
No, in all honesty, you need a big passion for it, and you need a driving force, because I suppose with anything you do in life, at the end of the day, I could say there would be 100 different things that would make you go, why are we doing this? And I tell you now, consultants, if they're going to write a report for you, $1,500 if it's the most simple report. If they need to come out to site, you may as well add another $1,000 to it. If they actually need to do anything and not just copy cut, it's going to be $3,500, $4,000. It just blows. And also watch consultants. They can take you down a long path. And if you have no one to parity check that, you will just be forking it out. And we almost got caught on one occasion, which we've been quite lucky actually, with how it's gone. There was one occasion where we were pretty much told that we had to have a contamination report for a farm, to use it as a farm, and which we did. We had it, and they said, "Oh, we believe that there's contamination, so it needs to go to a phase 2, which involved bringing in core drillers and excavators for a cost of $30,000. And I said, yeah, surely not. So then we took it to someone else, and he said it should never have gone to this at all. Why? So, and it ended up costing us $1,800. So you just got to watch your back. So most people are brilliant out there, really, really good. And when they hear what you want to do, and if you're passionate about it, they get passionate about it. But there's some out there that you just watch your back. Parity check.
One thing you'll find, and John will vouch for this, the industry we're in is a small, tight community, right? Yep. And we've all had our issues, but it is a very collegial industry, and a lot of us subscribe to the philosophy of Bill Lark: a rising tide floats all boats or all ships. And there's a lot of support out there. There's a lot of people who talk to other distillers and go, mate, I'm fucked. I need some advice here. What can you tell me? And people share information. So never ever feel like you're alone, right? You're never. This is just my advice. Never feel like, Jesus, I'm facing a problem that no one else has faced. Guarantee there's someone out there that's faced the same problem. So a problem shared, mate. A problem shared.
You're probably looking at one of them right now.
Actually, I'm
right. And on that note, we're about to throw Todd under the bus.
You're dropping out. Sorry, I can't hear you.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Roll the little. Come on. Where is it? Where's the end?
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
I love that. All right. So this is our segment where we throw Todd under the bus. And he has a series of questions. And go, Todd.
Hang on. Everyone's dropped out on me.
Oh, rubbish.
You've got to love it when I have to throw myself under the bus. Although this entire evening has been one big throw under the bus.
You've done well, mate.
So no, it's not over yet. So I just want to bring up, because one of the throw under the buses was bringing something up early, and no one picked up on it. So I just want to ask this question here to start with.
Go.
So
right.
Is what type of barrels will be used down the track?
No worries.
Now, I didn't get any of that. Did anyone else?
Yep.
We all did, I think. Yeah, just you, Crafty.
Yeah, it's just you, Crafty.
Oh, Jesus. I have to get out of the bloody... Hold on. I'm out of the ute. Oh,
you can always put yourself on mute to start with.
Hold on. Out of the ute.
I'll hold on for you, mate.
Yeah. Inside secret. I really need a mute button on him in the distillery, really.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Oh, this is
a
good telly, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're here.
How you going? Can you hear us?
Must be the wind out here.
Okay, well, while you sort your stuff out.
He ain't getting an answer to this question. I mean, he's not important.
Yeah, no worries. He can watch the replays.
That'd be right. Todd throws Todd on the bus and I can't hear a damn thing.
Right.
And I can't bloody mute him, like always.
Oh, you can't mute him?
Oh, I can hear you now.
So silence is a virtue, Crafty.
Righto.
Okay. Talk quick.
So yeah, type of barrels we'll be using.
Oh, it's the wind.
So I've gone down the line of I suppose going to bigger barrels. We're only about 1.9 k's from the coast here, so we've got, I suppose, quite a lot of fluctuation and quite a bit of humidity here too. And so we have a lot of big southerly busters that come through as well. So I've gone for larger barrels. At the moment, we've got we've got coming through. We've got 4 just standard ASBs. 2 have been recharred, and so I think 2 are from I want to say my 4 Roses, and the other 2 were I can't remember the other 2. But then we've also got in waiting. We've got a Moscatel 500-liter sherry butt and 2 300-liter Darrenberg puncheons that had a tawny in them, and I mainly wanted to use them for sleep. I suppose for sleepers, I want to put some long-term stuff down. But what I found was that a lot of fellas,
everybody.
I found that smaller barrels were creating probably a bit more issues for a lot of people, and especially with how much variation or temperature and humidity variation that we have. The wood was working anyway, so why increase your surface area? So I suppose very simply, I think from memory, the Darrenberg were French oaks, the Moscatel was a Spanish oak, and the others were all just American oak.
So it doesn't sound like you have like a distinct plan to go all ex-bourbon or all wine cask or all fortified. You're just sort of going to work out what works for you and play around with it.
100%, mate. Yeah. So, and I suppose mainly because our difference is our grain and our malt. So what we can pull off our property will be the point of difference. And I wanted something with a bit of variation from just going and also limiting myself to, our flavor is big sherry bombs. And it's like, well, I've now got to pay $1,600 for a sherry cask or a sherry barrel. So we wanted a bit more flexibility in there. And we're not big. So seasonal releases of different things, and then moving that into our brewery and that as well. So giving ourselves flexibility, and that was pretty much what I was looking for, flexibility.
Cool. And the whole sustainability thing.
Yep.
How are you approaching that?
Yeah, so it's been very interesting, and it probably ties into a lot more things than what we usually think, even to the point of, so our shirts here, as much as we can, we try and use sustainable items or sustainable practices as best we can. Obviously, there becomes an economic point as well. It'd be nice to have all the money in the world and make everything as sustainable as possible, but you have to draw the line somewhere. So wherever we can, this is ethically sourced organic cotton. You obviously pay a lot more for them, but we only have a few and we wear them for special events.
Yeah, cool.
But I think mainly coming back onto the farm. So our practices for the farm, for example, we've gone right into, I don't know if you've heard of a thing called keyline design, or so a fella called P.A. Yeoman designed a practice called keyline design, and it just comes down to utilizing better subsoil water flow within your property, and utilizing the water that falls onto your actual land, and then structuring our paddocks in a way that what they call work on the key line, so it comes slightly off contour. So we're running water from the highest point on a valley to the lowest point on a ridge, the ridge being the driest point on a paddock. So I'm not being like as in put in like a big swale valley or anything, but we have this thing called a subsoiler, which ours has 3 tines, and it digs in below, and we run just slightly off the contour, and when the water falls on it, it falls onto there, and then we're able to be more efficient with our water use on the property. So we then have alley cropping as well. That this is planned that we're planning, or we're cutting in as well. So we have other production trees on the property that run on our paddocks. So we have 15-meter spaces on our paddocks, and then we have about a 1.5 to 3 meter tree line. And those tree lines have production trees like avocados, macadamia, whatnot as future proofing trees. And then we have a bush planting in front of it, which has things like native raspberries and other botanicals like that. From a sustainable point of view, everything from the distillery brewery we want to use back onto our actual farm. So the usual things like your draft or your spent grains. And that. Sorry, it's a bit windy here now. It's just picked up. That will be. We have cattle, so we have strip grazing on those paddocks as well. So we have a certain amount of cattle that we can graze within 1,000 square meters, and they'll move pretty much daily, or depending on how fast the grass grows. And then we have a 1 or 2 day break between that, and then we have chickens. The chickens come in and they will eat all the maggots, so it reduces our fly loading on the farm, but it also scatters a lot of the nutrient onto the paddock. They eat a lot of other insects and whatnot too, and it's brilliant for your pasture and also for carbon sequestration into your soil. So then they work as a system itself. The cattle get used in our on-site kitchen, so we don't slaughter. We're not planning to slaughter that many cattle. Probably one head per month. Everything gets utilized, so to the point where the hide gets tanned. It costs more to do that, but at the same time, everything's getting used. So we can send a request to the abattoir for all the blood and bone from that cow as well, or that beast as well. So all the blood and bone will actually then go back onto the property. And it goes on set rates as well. So there's a way to do it correctly, sort of thing. But then all our wastewater, we have our own on-site wastewater system as well. So all our distillery wash down wastewater, it then goes into a holding tank and then through a reed filtration. And then we have a big 1929 or building 1929 windmill, which pumps all our wastewater back up to the top of the hill, which is a big header tank up there. And that's used as irrigation water for everything else. So all our trees and all our pasture and that as well.
Cool.
We wanted initially to have a worm farm on site for a sustainability point of view as well, so we can utilize all our nutrients, but regulations then don't allow in a commercial setting for you not to have a chlorinator or pretty much a filtration system which kills all the living organisms in the anyway. So it makes it null void. There's no point of doing it. You spend more money and achieve less. So pretty much from a sustainability point of view, our systems. So reducing less water. We're having 4 160,000 litre tanks on site, even though we have town water. But our roof space is that big that it makes sense to capture as much as we can. Because 2 years ago, before, like now, it's obviously nice and green and everything, but 2.5 years ago, it was bone dry. The paddocks no one had ever seen it this dry. All the creeks had dried up. We're known for green, lush pasture here, and it was brown, crispy. And I suppose farmers were buying water from town in truckloads just to water their cattle. Yeah. So I suppose it rained home. We're used to on average about a 1,400 mil average rainfall. So it definitely hit home. So just from a sustainability point of view, just trying to future proof and as much as we can cycle back on ourselves and close back on ourselves, we will. And nothing.
You can say you haven't thought of absolutely fucking everything, because you've just listed everything that I would even consider was like sustainable. It's absolutely incredible the amount of planning that you've put into this.
Oh, cheers, mate. No, I suppose I've had a long time.
It's going to be good to see the journey from here.
See it all unfold. It's incredible to hear that sort of, your passion just oozes in what you're doing with this development. So once it's up and running, it's just going to be absolutely mind blowing.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. And look, any advice from you fellas, I'd really love to take on board too. Like I've been listening to you guys, and I know Combi, the offsider, he's definitely been listening to these too, and it's so helpful having guys like yourself pass on, because obviously you've had years and years of experience as well.
You'd be surprised, really.
Actually, I wanted to have a dig at Crafty, but he's not here. I know a lot of his things. He says that he's one of the last smell of the oily rag distilleries. But I want to challenge.
We might have. I think that we might have found someone else.
I want to challenge you.
I just want to put it out there over the waves that they throw me under the bus, and then both my presenters have disappeared. So John and I are running the show now.
So I do want to circle back a little bit. I don't know how long you got. I don't want to keep you. We talked about passion earlier, and obviously you've got the passion in making a great product, whether it's beer or whiskey. Passion to provide for your family. You touched on that, like you want to be a provider. We're all providers. That's what we do. We've got to provide for someone, right? So are you using the last few years as an excuse to drink as much whiskey as possible? Is that what you're doing? Because, every day I use working in the industry an excuse to drink. Not as much as possible, but as many variants of whiskey and gin and vodka as possible. So
100%.
You touched on Lefroy earlier. You're a big Lefroy fan. So what's your go-to whiskey? What do you drink? What do you love? Have you tried Australian whiskies? Do you have a standout? Don't say Crafty. I'll be really upset.
Right. No, great question. So I suppose what I did from the start, this would have been in 2017. So when we first got at ATA, I think it was like, I need to explore whiskey, because at that stage I was like, I like peaty whiskies from Isla. I like Isla whiskies. And I was like, well, that's really not good enough. I can't go, well, I'm going to make an Isla whiskey here. It doesn't work. So I joined the whiskey club. I thought that might be a good way of trying to not spend, and also getting away from just going, well, this is what Dan Murphy's has, and this is what you're sort of going to get. So, I have been using this last 2-3 years as an excuse to drink lots, not just whiskey, but also vodka, gin. I love gin. I love vodka. Beer, wine, everything. But it's counterproductive sometimes, because when you do need to study and you're like, oh, I'll have a whiskey. You're like, oh, that was really good. So I've sort of got to tame myself a little bit sometimes. But I probably have, my wife laughs actually. So I'll branch off a little bit, and I'll definitely will cover it. so to do this thing, we actually sold our house in Jamboree, and we're in with them. This is the mother-in-law's house at the moment, and when we moved here, back at the other place, I had a whiskey shelf, and at the time it had probably about 40, 50 different whiskeys on it from around the world. And when we got here, I was like, there's nowhere for them. So we converted the old carport into our bedroom, and then I built 2 shelves above our bed. When I say 2 shelves, there's 2 shelves either side, and these are about 3 meters long each, and they're all full of whiskey at the moment. So I do tame myself because obviously, I'm not that flush. But Australian whiskies, like I've got different spirits and that at the moment. So I've got just here because I'm outside. My wife got me this one a little while ago. It's a whiskey from the guys at Heart.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting because I like their that was something we were very interested in trying to do here. Unfortunately, we don't have a big enough cheese maker because this is a dairy region. We're on a dairy farm, and we use old dairy vats for our open top fermentation. I didn't say that. Sorry. We're using old dairy vats, not on the brewing side, but just on the distilling side. So it was something that we were very interested in trying to do with cow's milk vodka. But it's at this stage, it's still on the other side. So I've got 5 9s. And then
grab your Hobart whiskey bottle and hold it up for us all to see.
I don't have one. It's finished in the bin. Dan Murphy's at one out.
You go out, you order a dram. Like, what are you going? You going Scotch? You going Australian, Japanese? What do you go to?
So my point that I try and make is that if I'm in a place that has a distillery, I'll drink their whiskey. So or from around that region. So if I go out hunt away, I'll drink their region. But if I go to even out west sort of thing, and there might be the closest distillery, I'll try and find because what I found is a lot of the craft guys, they all have that 100K radius that we all try and do that we're not going that big. So we stay with a 100K radius. That's a doable distance. So I like to try and, if I can, I'll buy a bottle of that and come back. So it sounds really bad. I don't really have a go-to. What I do have is I've got those 4 shelves above our bed, but then I have an old antique 1930s whiskey cabinet. And on top of that is all the bottles that get below 1/3 go onto that. So I try and slowly work my way through that. But I don't really have a go-to, and it changes too. Like, I don't mind a pipe or a cigar, and it depends too. If I'm having a cigar, I'll be like, oh, I might that'll pair really, really nicely with it. Or if it depends. If it's really hot, it changes what I'll go for a gin.
Right.
Or
So that's right. There's no right answer. I was just curious whether you were finding
I don't have
Australian whiskey, or you still drinking a lot of Ireland whiskey. It's
just Hobart. That's all I like.
Just Hobart, yeah. So you were down in Tasmania in 2016. Have you been back since then?
Yeah. So actually our honeymoon was, which was actually 2015. So our honeymoon was in 2015 down there. 2016. Yep. I think, when did I come back down? We came back down one more time, but no, other than that, I haven't been back down. I would love to have, but sort of COVID. Actually, that's a lie. Flying, I had been down there a lot. So I used to fly for Jetstar, and we'd fly into Launceston and Hobart all the time. But no overnighters.
All right. Just fine. Yeah. I think you must be due for another trip in down to Hobart. So leave the 4 children with the mother-in-law, and take a day and going down. We're fine.
Thanks very much. Thank you. No, I don't think she'll mind. No, I'd love to. Thank you. And likewise, if you guys are up this way, obviously there's not much here, but we've got the farms there, and there's a lot of cool different places around here to go and have a look at. So we're only an hour and a half south of Sydney. Definitely love to have you all.
Sounds like a good trip.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
Sorry, go.
I was going to say, do you have any been at the very, very start, and you guys have obviously seen a lot further into the picture. Do you have any advice for us going forward from the start in regards to, I suppose, setting goals or not going too big too early, or stick to a plan? Or I suppose it's a pretty broad question.
Look, I think everybody. The best thing about the Australian distilling industry is we're all good mates. We all get along. We can shoot the shit and we can give each other shit, but it's all in jest. There's a few outliers in every single industry, but 99% of the industry we're all good mates. So I tried to send a private chat earlier. Like, first thing is, if you got any questions, give me a call. Pick up the phone, give me a call. Don't SMS me, don't email me, because I'll just lose it. I'll forget it and you won't hear it. Just give me a call. Pick my brain. But by no means do I know everything that's going on. Like, we all have challenges, and half the time I deal with it, and I don't know, still don't know what the fuck's going on. I just get through the hurdles. But there's no advice anyone can give you. You've got your vision, you've got your big picture on what you're trying to create, and it sounds absolutely phenomenal what you're doing, and I love the sound of it. So all you can do is work towards that, and you're going to have challenges, you're going to have hurdles, you're going to have these speed bumps, and you'll have these days where you go home and like, fuck it, I give up, I don't want to do this. But you'll keep doing it, because fuck, what else are you going to do? You can't fly anymore. So, you know, this is you. It sounds like you've put your whole heart and soul into this, which I think is the best advice. Like, you've almost got to be all in, or not at all. And it sounds like you are. So you'll make your own journey. You'll make your own story. You'll have challenges. I guess my only advice I can give is reach out, like Crafty said, to other people when you have challenges. We've all faced it. We all have shit going on. And, you know, I reckon every day I'll go home and have to have a drink because, like, fuck this shit, you know. But, you know, that's just part of the job. Yeah, I don't know if Todd, you got any other advice? Well, you know, it's
just stick to your own plan. Don't try and compare yourself to others. Just run your basically run your own race. And
that's good. Yeah, good advice.
As John and Crafty said, everyone is receptive to a phone call. We've all been through it. Crafty definitely has. Some of the things that he's done in his shed, he'll more than happily share with you to try and stop you doing them. But from my side, one of the things that I learned is that the sooner you can get into bigger barrels, the better, because the little barrels are just problematic. And
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's I couldn't justify the cost of what would be a 20-litre barrel, and you look at it and go, we get enough working in and out that a 200-litre ASB is probably the smallest I would like to try and go. I don't want to go any smaller than that, really. I love the idea of having long sleepers. Sorry.
Yeah, we've done all of them, starting off at 20. So we've gone through the process, and you know we're leaning towards probably 200s more often than not now.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I mean, it's just a wide net as well. Like you'll work out what works for your spirit, and your spirit will change over time. And it sounds like you've got an open mind to it. So don't be afraid to try different size casks and different types of casks. And you might just pin something that you really like. And it doesn't mean then you have to do only exclusively that. But I definitely so when we put down our spirit, it was 40s and 50s as a minimum. A lot of other distillers were doing 20s, and we just, we just didn't want to go down the 20-litre cask. So we're now only filling full format casks, 200s and larger. We've got the capacity to wait. We can take our time with it. And time is a bit of a luxury in this industry, so it's not something everybody has. But if you've got it, then definitely just sit back and be patient.
Yeah. Well, that was probably another one of the thoughts is that when we went into this, it was the brewing aspect and also the white spirit aspect became quite obviously a big part, because the farm, albeit can provide food for also the kitchen and whatnot, which is another revenue stream, but there was always the aspect that the whiskey would have to go down, and I don't want to bring out an immature whiskey. And it was, if we could afford to keep our cash flow going with the brewery and the kitchen, then the whiskey would wait. And that was, I suppose, the idea of the purchase behind the larger barrels from the get-go, as opposed to going, well, let's get some smaller wood down. That was, I suppose, the thought behind it, is that our cash flow from the brewery aspect and being, I suppose, a destination, hopefully, is what. But we've got an awesome little river there that you can kayak down from the Minamara and walk up, and it's not, it's just a lovely place to bring your family, and I hope you guys bring yours when it's ready.
Yeah, the only problem is when you work 80 hours a week, it's really hard to get away to get traveling. So
it's for a business trip.
Yeah,
business consultant. Do you want some consultant?
I'm in the wrong industry. You're talking about these rates consultants charging you. I think I'm in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
Blows my mind, some of the fees that they charge. You look at the fee schedule and you're like, they're seriously charging me $280 an hour. An hour. Yeah. Like, I'm in the wrong. I should have been this random consultant. Yeah. It just blows my mind.
Anyone can be a consultant, right? It doesn't need to be good advice.
No.
Just needs to be some sort of advice, yeah.
And the worst part is you can have a really, really good consultant, but your council doesn't agree with them. That's when you have problems.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I know all about that.
Oh, do you? You poor bugger.
Yeah.
What do you do but laugh, eh? Actually,
That's
I've got some experience, fellas, here. In regards to the Australian, the ADA, is there any foresight? I know with, like, for example, I think I mentioned to you guys earlier, we're looking at looking at doing the microbrewing course. So it's a Certificate 3 in food processing microbrewery, and that's held at TAFE and Ultimo. And it's a really good course. And yeah, from all accounts, and it's put out some really, really good brewers. But there's nothing like that for distilling. And I don't know whether that's something that a lot of the bigger distilleries are looking for, or are they taking on the elk of, well, if we put something formal in place, then it then creates problems with employment, or they like to do their own?
A lot of maybe just time issues. I think I've chatted to quite a few people that have had this idea and this, we've had this conversation, but I think it's just a lot of people in this industry that are a bit time poor, and just trying to find people that can help facilitate some of this stuff is difficult. Are you a member of the ADA now?
No, well, I can't be because we're not distilling anything.
But you have a manufacturer's license, right?
Yes, but we're not producing anything. So it said that we need to produce over X amount of litres per whatever it was. But I'm part of the Independent Brewers Association because they have a
different thing.
But I would be if they had the category there for it. Like, so the IBA have a category for you're a brewery in the beginning, like you're the brewery startup brewery. You mightn't be producing anything, but you want to put yourself out there and you want to try and make contacts and whatnot, and so you get some of the things. But if the ADA had something like that, I'd be very, very. I would have signed up to it 2-3 years ago.
Sort of thought that they did. Might have.
I might have misread it. That could be. more than likely, I'm not the one that stuffed up. All right.
Because the ADA, we do have a conference coming up in April in Melbourne, and it's an absolute dude of a conference. So it's a great opportunity to meet a lot of other distillers, just chat everything industry, and then have dinner and a few drinks and kick back, and it's good. So. I'll get Crafty to send me your number. We might have just a bit of a small chat on the phone at some point as well. I'll give you my
cool, mate. Well. No worries. That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, it can't hurt to even try and sign up then.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
They're only going to deny me. So I think we've lost Crafty altogether.
He's sent me a text saying you're running solo. So thank you, Crafty. So basically, we just hit an hour and 20 minutes. So unless John, you've got some more questions, maybe we can.
No, I reckon I'm pretty much done. I mean, I'm happy if you want to kill the stream, and we might have a bit of a chat anyway. But yeah, I think it's gone pretty well. Good. Unless you got any questions for us.
No. Thanks very much, fellas. I really, really appreciate the time, and I look forward to actually producing something to send you.
yeah, absolutely. We look forward to it. And I just want to put it out there, the last sort of 30 minutes of this was the best, I think. so guys, thank you very much. I look forward to chatting in the future when you're some product. And John, thank you for being our first ever.
No worries. That's why I'm here.
Thanks, John.
Guest stroke frontline speaker for the night.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I do.
That's it. So thank you. And guys, thank you for joining.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.